I think that every single person should get therapy, no matter where you're at.
Did you always believe that?
No, just once
Yeah.
I got therapy, every single person should get therapy. 1000% should be talking with a therapist that they connect with and that is very, very educated for a long period of time. It's like a coach,
Yeah.
basically. And yeah, I've had extreme benefits from it, and not just the relationship side of things, in many different. When I was a kid, and pretty much all the way up until I got therapy, I was so confused constantly. I always felt in a state of confusion, not just about emotions, about a lot of things, like things that were going on inside my head, inside my body. I
Yeah.
always felt confused that I wasn't able to answer things myself. Emotions was definitely a huge thing. Like I
Yeah.
would feel anxious and be like, why am I feeling anxious right now? And I wouldn't be able to answer it. I'm feeling stressed. Why am I feeling stressed? I'm feeling fearful. Why am I feeling
That's
fear?
like I think most people.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think that's most people.
Yeah. And I watched Inside Out too.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was very, very good how that movie deconstructed and like put in very simple terms how people feel emotions. And so that movie really got to me for sure.
You feel like after I actually have a question because I've actually tried to find like therapists before,
Mhm.
and I've had bad luck. I've had bad luck with my personality. Not that I'm like a bad personality, but I'm also somebody that's working like 14 hour, whatever, 12, 14 hour working nonstop
Yeah.
basically. And I have a hard time finding somebody that who's a therapist who understands that. Like and for me, it's like so obvious. Like this is like the season of my life right now. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. This is my job, dude. I enjoy this so much fun. But I don't mind putting like 14 hours. But if I had a kid, I wouldn't want to be doing this for 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like there's a different season to my life now.
Yeah.
But I've always had a hard time finding somebody who's a therapist who sort of gets the type A entrepreneur personality. I think I've never found one. And that's actually been super frustrating. But you said you found one and it was like a one time, like first shot good or no?
No, definitely not. No,
No, I have no doubt.
so I treated finding therapists like hiring inside the business. And so it's the Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi approach that you do like 100 interviews, like you get 100 resumes, and then
Yeah.
you treat the interview process like the learning process. So a therapist is a bit more difficult because, people aren't submitting resumes to work for you. So you do have to pay a significant amount of money where you're doing like intro sessions with people. But I just did multiple intro sessions with lots of people, did lots of research on various people. And I had the exact same thing of resonating with somebody that was a business owner.
Yeah.
And so I found a therapist that was actually an influencer. And so has a very significant following on social media, runs his own business.
Yeah.
And then is very expensive, obviously, because he's a business owner that is a therapist, but
He still gets it.
is able to resonate with it heavily.
Yeah. What was the thing that made you like him versus anyone else? Like, what did he say? What was like because I think like a lot of entrepreneurs probably need therapy, but I think probably a lot of people listening will have the same problem as both of us.
Yeah. That's a very, very good question. What made him really stand out at the beginning? I think what made him really stand out at the beginning is that most therapists, and when you think of therapy, it's them asking you questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't need that at the start. I didn't need to be asked a bunch of questions because I was very confused and I didn't even know how to answer certain things authentically. And he was asking me, like therapists usually ask your emotions around certain topics and like how you feel around certain things. And these therapists weren't fucking getting like that.
Yeah,
I don't know how to feel these things. Like, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. Like and then I needed a therapist who was basically giving me variations of answers that I could say yes or no to, and I could tie myself to and help like go through the progress of learning. And so this particular therapist, like when we talk about particular subjects, he is explaining it heavily. So I'm getting to understand it. It's like basically where he's like a teacher.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to me and asking questions that I could ask myself, or that I could go onto ChatGPT and ask myself.
Exactly. Yeah. You need somebody to actually explain like context around like what. And you said like, and I think this is also true, not just with entrepreneurs. You said you have like a hard time understanding like why you feel a certain thing at a certain point. I think most people just kind of go through life being very reactive to their emotions.
Yeah.
Especially again, entrepreneurs. Like they have like this mental fortitude that allows them to get through these emotions. But I'd be lying if I said that every day isn't like a fucking roller coaster. But yeah, I can get through it, and I can still like you know be perform at a high level. But I don't really love the fact that I have to do that, even if I'm stressed or anxiety or angry or whatever. And sometimes you don't even know where it's fucking coming from, because you have, over the past week, I can't even remember all the things that went right and went wrong. And you don't know what was the one thing that triggered that particular emotion, but you're just kind of going through life like, whatever. I know that I'm stressed about something, but I don't even have time to think about what that thing is. 'Cause I have 100 other things I got to figure out
Yeah.
right now. So when you go through this process, talk to me like sort of like the end results. It's been 10 months, it's been like a couple months. So what's sort of changed, like the before and after, as like an entrepreneur? Is like, you have another girlfriend now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I meet her yet or no?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I can't remember.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like, explain like the after, because I think
Yeah.
again, I love this, dude. This is so good for entrepreneurs to have a conversation about mental health and therapy and everything.
It's very little talked about in this industry.
I know it isn't talked about a lot, and I'll tell you a story, and then I want you to
Yeah.
answer. I had a friend on who, again, it's all entrepreneurs that come on the show, and he had he told me a story about one of his friends that had a company, that 100-person company, and it was in real estate, and
That's big.
it's great. It's
Yeah.
100 people, like
Yeah.
a decent sized company, like tens of millions of dollars in
Yeah.
this company, and I think it was something to do with the real estate settlement, or something to do with like the lawsuit around how realtors show houses and get commissions. I'm not in real estate, so I don't know this.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole thing about like NAR, and like there was like a couple lawsuits. Anyway, so it was going to like significantly impact his business. He didn't do anything wrong, but he saw that this was going to impact like how his business functioned and how much he could make and his margins. Basically, it would like fundamentally shift how he did business. Anyways, so like the settlement came out, or the lawsuit came out, or the result of the lawsuit came out, and then on Friday he laid off 100 people,
No.
and then he killed himself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, seriously, very serious. He killed himself the day after he laid off his entire company, and in his mind, his whole identity was wrapped up in his business.
Oh, dude, that's so sad.
The guy who told me the story is a good friend. His name's Colin Campbell. He's a Canadian entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He didn't name me the name of his friend, but that's, if you listen to the podcast, I'll tell you the story himself. But yeah, so he killed himself because his identity was so wrapped in his business, and he felt like he was letting so many people down. He could not deal with it. And this guy has more money than 99% of the world, right? And he killed himself. So it's fucked up. And it wasn't because he did anything wrong. It was because he couldn't manage living on this earth, disappointing 100 people. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. Because your
That's
whole
so
identity
sad.
gets wrapped into it. But
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Man, that hits. That's so sad. It's something I work on heavily with my therapist, where I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this, of a feeling of only being loved and getting attention when you have accomplishments in life.
yeah.
And it's something that comes from childhood, of where you either only got attention or you only felt love from your parents, whether it's true or not. Feelings are feelings. You felt this way, and so it was a reason you felt this way, and so you felt the only way you could be loved by other people is if you performed. And I had this tremendously, of I felt that I was only worthy of love if I performed and if I was successful, whatever that meant in my eyes of being successful. And in reality, what parents are supposed to do and how you're supposed to feel as a child is that the world loves you and your parents love you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what you are, no matter what you become.
Yeah.
And they just love you for being. We're human beings. We're supposed to just be and be loved for being. and has nothing to do with what we are tied to. And I'm not fixed by any means. It's been 10 months, but I'm starting to get to a place of where the stuff that I do inside of my work is separate from the person that I am.
I think that's very important.
I
Go ahead.
no, keep going.
I experienced something this past weekend which actually threw me off a little bit. And I don't want this to sound like people that have like entrepreneurs just bitching about how they're perceived in the world. But I'm going to tell you something that happened to me that actually threw me off. So I was at this this event, and it's a great event, but I've noticed that as I do better in my life and my business, and I put my name out there more, people also start to look at you as a little bit of a commodity. And what I mean by that is, so I went on stage a couple times and spoke and taught and whatever. And then after the session, people would come up and like ask like very tactical advice for their business. And like, I have this problem, how do I solve it? And then like after I answered those questions, like nobody talked to me. And I'm just sitting there. Like nobody like on that like a casual conversation and just like see like how's like life, like what's going on. It's like everybody was like, how do I extract information from this like little walking business encyclopedia? And it was like kind of like shitty. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, it threw me off.
Yeah.
It actually really threw me off because I haven't just, and I think the reason why I noticed it is because I was hanging out all day. And again, like I don't mind this. I love teaching people, but I haven't really hung out all day at a conference in a long time.
Yeah.
Usually like when you go to speak, you go, you speak, you leave, usually. And it was really just like, because I was there all day, that I noticed it after about, spoke about like the whole, like a lot of the room. It wasn't like a huge session, like about like 30 people asked me questions. And then after they asked me questions, it's like, we're good. We don't need Scott anymore. It was just interesting.
Shit, man.
It was just really,
I'm sorry.
No, it was just like, and I was laughing, and Gina's like, so this is what celebrities feel like after they take, it was like actually like after a couple people like took a picture with me, and then I was like trying to talk, and they're like, no, I'm busy.
But that can reinforce a belief system.
I know it can reinforce a belief system. And again, it's hard to like explain, because someone's like, oh, you're cool, someone took a picture with you, why are you bitching about that? And it's not that. It's because at the end of the day, like sometimes like you still just want to like have like casual conversations and not feel like somebody's just throwing up a picture of you because they like your podcast, they like your speech, or you gave them like a great piece of business advice, and they're like, okay, I'm done with that guy. I don't know, just shitty.
Yeah.
It was just weird. It was a very fucking weird feeling, because usually if
you haven't experienced that before?
Never.
Oh,
no,
wow.
Never experienced that before. Because I've only really started speaking at conferences in the past like year and a half, and before that, the podcast wasn't big. I didn't get like recognized ever. So this was like a different feeling for me, where people recognized me from the show, and then they wanted like a very tactical like thing from me, as opposed to me just going to a conference as like an attendee and me just being like part of like the mass of people just going to the conference. Very different dynamic. It was very, very strange. It was weird. It was fucking weird, dude. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. It was very strange. It felt like like you were super pigeonholed into like a very specific kind of person, and because that's how people saw you, they wouldn't see you as anything else. I don't know. It was strange.
Wow.
But I don't know if you've ever experienced that at all, but I guess if people like,
I've experienced aspects of that, and it's similar to what we're talking about. That's why you went into that.
Yeah, because like growing up, I didn't feel the pressure that you did about performance. I don't think. Maybe a little bit from my dad, but not really. But now I'm feeling it. Like, and I'll tell you something. Like when you have so the podcast is something that everybody wants to get on. It's very interesting to understand like who wants to like talk to you because they like you versus who wants to talk to you just because they want to eventually get on your show. And I'm assuming it's the same with people, like, again, the people that I know that are worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't even fucking know how they make new friends. It would be so stressful to me to make new friends because you don't know who's genuine.
Yeah.
You have no idea who's genuine. Like I don't know how I don't have a playbook on how to do that. I'm sure if I did this for the next 30 years I'd figure it out, but I don't have a playbook on if you have like achieved some success, how to have like a filtering system as to who's full of shit and who's not.